sometimes I'll like ask my brother or something. I'm like, which mix do you like better? And I'll send him like 3 different mixes, and he's like, I hear no difference between any of these songs. Like, there's no difference. And I'm kind of like, oh, what are you talking about? Like, the snare is like much louder, and like the harmonies are like all the way at the back. And like, he's like, no, I really don't hear that.
Hi, I'm Hannah from NME, and today I'm joined by Amber Marks, the latest in NME's In Conversation series. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Sunny, can't complain.
Well, we're here today to talk about your debut album, which is coming out soon. So exciting. The debut is finally here.
I know, I can't wait to put it out. I want to like put it out tomorrow, but I have to be patient.
So you started work on this one in 2019 with Worth It, is that right?
Yeah, I think, well, there's some other ones that I think were like were written a little bit before then. Like one of the interludes on the album was like written in like 2018 or maybe even 2017. But yeah, it's kind of been slowly progressing, here and there, putting pieces together. So it's been a long time in the making.
What did those early sort of like sketches sound like? How much have they changed?
Well, Out of This World which is the interlude, has changed a lot. It's, I don't know, I like reharmed a bunch of stuff. There's like, it's, I think also my like knowledge in production and working with projects and stuff like that has really expanded. So I think the quality that comes out of a session is like much better now as opposed to how I would write music and make music in 2018 or 2017. So I think so there's like multiple, aspects regarding how it's kind of changed, but I think it's gotten bigger, it's expanded. I think it's the best way to put it.
I was going to ask about production because, with your Connectio EP, it was very much you wrote it, you produced it. How involved were you in the production for this one? Was it another case of you doing all the production?
So for this one, it was kind of a mixture of things. I mean, a lot of it was just done in my bedroom on my own by myself. I prefer to work on my own. I think that's where I get the most creative. I've really gained a good relationship with this producer called Julian Bonetto, whom I really trust, and like he's kind of become like my Jedi master when it comes to like making music and making beats and stuff like that. So I really look up to him. And so he's co-executive produced the whole album with me, and he's been a part of it since the start. So he has like a really heavy hand in it. And then some of it was written with like his crew, which is basically like his family essentially. We like did a writing camp in Ojai at the end of 2019. So some of the songs were written there all together, which I was like very nervous about, because the idea of like working with a bunch of people in a session is like, that's like the epitome of anxiety for me. So but he really like kind of convinced me, and it ended up being like amazing and probably the best experience I've had working with other people. So yeah, it's kind of in a mixture. It's kind of all over the place, but I definitely am very much involved in every song in terms of production and writing and all of that.
Yeah, when you went into that writing camp, how long did it kind of take you to sort of relax into it? Because I imagine it's sort of a gradual process.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I like cried the first day because I was so nervous. And it was so easy for them because they all like knew each other and stuff like that, which ended up being, I was really nervous about the fact that they all knew each other, but then it ended up being very helpful for me. And yeah, the first day, like everyone was super welcoming and really sweet, and definitely took me like 3 days to really just relax and feel completely open. But we would have dinners every night, and like we were all there to write music for my album, so it was like they were asking me questions every night. Like they were really trying to get to know me and like get in my head, and it was really enjoyable. And it wasn't until like one of the writers and producers, this guy named John Ryan, his artist name is John the Blind. He's amazing, and he was like, after dinner, he was like, let's just play a game. And like I was like, yeah, what kind of game do you want to play? He was like, let's split up into teams and we'll just like write songs, and we'll like have a timer on for like 30 minutes, and we'll do 2 rounds so that you can be with both teams. And you know, you get to choose which ones are the best. So like 4 songs essentially would come out of it. Yeah, and it wasn't until then that I really kind of like let go, because I was like, oh, we're playing a game, like who really cares? Nothing's really going to come out of this. And then like competition ended up coming out of that game. And then another song on the album called Bubbles. And so it was like, it was pretty cool. Excuse me. It was pretty cool to like kind of I really wasn't expecting anything out of that, but it ended up being such an amazing experience. And like after that, it was just like we were all just having fun. Like I felt like I was on vacation. It was just so enjoyable, and just like kind of felt like the rest of the trip kind of felt like we were just playing a game essentially.
And now you've opened, you know, your collaborating pool a bit more. Would you do more of it? Would you maybe sort of like produce other artists or write songs for other artists?
Oh my God, that still scares me, the idea of doing that. But I would love to produce for other artists. The idea of that scares me, but I'm down. I think I like kind of started dipping my toes in. I've done some remixes for other artists, and that's kind of like me just like slowly getting into that whole world. Writing camps still make me really nervous. Doing another writing camp with the same crew would not make me nervous. But yeah, I don't know. I think hopefully I can get to a point where I feel like super comfortable with it. It's really just a mental thing, honestly. I need to like really get over that hump. So I'm slowly but surely trying to get better at not beating myself up so much and feeling like you know, this is like shouldn't be that miserable for me. but you know, we'll get there.
And someone you did work with was Lyrically, or Empress on the amazing You've Got to Feel, which is such a powerful song. How did that collaboration come about?
Oh my God, she's so awesome. We've been wanting to work together for a while, and she just sent me, I think we're under the same management. So she just sent me this beat, and she had already had a chorus to it, and she kind of told me the idea of where she wants to go with the song. And I had already been like kind of that feeling had already been like kind of boiling up inside of me, and I really wanted to write a song about it. So it kind of was just perfect timing. So it like I remember getting the song and I was like, this is dope, I definitely want to be a part of this. And then like within like 2 days I like sent her back and you know, a session, and she was like, this is amazing, okay, I'm gonna like, you know, work on it. And so it was just like back and forth through FaceTime and email and text and all that stuff. Which is kind of honestly my ideal way of working with people right now, because I'm like it allows me to like still, you know, implement my process, because it's, you know, you're kind of still on your own, but you can work with people as well. So yeah, that was sick. And then, you know, she's so amazing, she's such a sweetheart and like absolute genius when it comes to everything pretty much. So I'm really happy that I got to be a part of it.
Your debut album was started pre-pandemic, I guess sort of finished during. I mean, it is the elephant in the room that I'm sure you've been asked about so many times, but how did the lockdowns change what you're working on? Did your mindset change at all?
Kind of, yes. Well, it definitely changed the album like 100%. It expanded for sure. I'm so thankful, honestly. I mean, I know a lot of like negative events and things, like very sad things really came out of COVID, but I think I feel very blessed and lucky that COVID, you know, was kind of a tool for me, in the sense that I like the silver lining for me through COVID was that I got more time. You know, I was ready to put out the album last year. Like we were about to shoot videos and stuff, like, you know, throughout like the summer and start doing the rollout and everything like that. And then everything was put on pause because of COVID. And I was pretty sad about it. And then, you know, we put the album on pause. I just started making like random beats on, you know, here and there and posting on social media, which kind of really allowed me to let go of like trying to have so much meaning behind everything I put out. So that was really exciting, like as a side project. And then I really started, you know, kind of digging into the meaning behind the album and like really trying to expand on that as well, because I knew I wanted the album to still as much as I had like let go of this kind of like pressure on myself in terms of like, this has to mean something, this has to mean something. For the album, I really wanted it to like take people on a journey, which I feel like I had kind of accomplished already, but then I kind of like, it kind of expanded in terms of like what I was thinking about, really, I started implementing into the album. And, you know, because I had so much time, I ended up writing like 3 or 4 more songs that ended up being on the album. And it really like allowed me to kind of add, or like, I was always kind of talking about this kind of like, what is the meaning of life? I was really starting to question all of these things, especially with what happened, you know, summer of last year with George Floyd and everything. And I was really starting to question like suffering and like suffering. And like, I would walk outside and just see, you know, homeless people, or there was like COVID, just felt like it was everywhere, and just like politically it was just a mess. And you know, and so I really started to kind of question like why there was so much suffering around, even, you know, at the most basic state. Like, even if you just look at the animal kingdom, like in order to survive, a sacrifice has to be made. Like, in order to live, there has to be death, you know, through, you know, consuming and all that stuff. And so I was like trying to find answers. And like, of course, I'm like, with the whole George Floyd thing, I was like looking to politics, because I was like, these are the people that are in power, like they're the ones that can make a change. And that was just like, I like started looking into that, and I was just like, wow, left, right, whichever side you look at, it's just like complete exploitation and corruption. And so that really made me start questioning like, you know, like being on planet Earth, and like what we're doing on a muddy rock in the middle of the universe and stuff like that. And I started really implementing that into being like, oh, I have been kind of like questioning these things through the songs I've been making. And how can I like rearrange it and like make it so that like it's the kind of telling the story of my life, and all these questions I've started asking myself. So it was really helpful for me, because it really allowed me to kind of go on this journey within myself, but then also like put it into the music. And I'm so like, I don't know what I'm like, thinking back, I'm like, I don't even know what my album would be if it wasn't for like the songs that were added. So like, can't be more thankful that I had more time with it. That was a really long answer. I'm so sorry.
I was going to say, the record split into 3 parts. Was it at this point that you decided how you're going to split it all?
No, I had kind of already decided, but I think what happened was that like for all the parts, it just gained more of like okay, before I was dealing with these emotions of insecurity, you know, the like how it was, what I was talking about before, going into sessions and stuff like that. I always have this like lingering question of, am I good enough and stuff like that. So I really wanted to talk about that, because I feel like everyone kind of goes through those everyday woes, and like that roller coaster of really questioning their capabilities, whether it's in their career or whatever, you know, regardless if they're an artist or not, you know, it can be in anything. And so I really wanted to talk about those feelings. And then I kind of, you know, part 2 kind of goes into this gaining of confidence, but in a way where you really push your feelings aside, don't really address them. And it's more kind of like a facade, which is how I kind of felt like I would just like fake this feeling of like confidence, and like, or want to kind of run away from my feelings, or what I was, you know, trying to, all these emotions I was suppressing essentially. And so then it would go into this part 3, having this aha moment, which that was kind of where last year really came into play, and really allowed me to kind of understand where the direction I was going. It kind of like allowed me to like, part 3 is kind of like this aha moment. And it's not like I found an answer. It's not like I found an answer to, because I still have anxiety and I still have those things, but it was more so that the questions that I was asking kind of changed. And it wasn't so much about like, you know, what was happening on social media for me, or like, am I gaining followers and all the numbers and like, you know, all those things you kind of start to think about especially when you have a label involved and all of that stuff. And it kind of, I just started thinking about other things and really questioning other things, and like the questions I was asking, last summer, and kind of trying to understand like what all these scientists theorize about, like, quantum physics and stuff like that. And just because, I would start looking out into the sky and like trying to like, I'm like, was so baffled and like wonder by what we were and what, life was and all that stuff. And so I think that's really where last year came into play, was in part 3, and yeah, that sense of questioning and that kind of aha moment. So it's like I've like titled all the parts, like I titled the first part is without, the second part is withheld, and then the third part is like within, because it's like I really was like, I was on this mental journey of like trying to understand what the universe was, but in doing so it was like I was trying to understand like what the universe within myself was as well. And it sounds really hippie. I definitely was smoking a lot of weed as well. That was probably that's probably taking like a part in all these like questions I had, but COVID, quarantining, the whole thing. So but yeah, I'm really thankful, because it's kind of completely changed the way I look at the world, and not, and like it's not like I'm like just happy-go-lucky now. It's more so that like I question different, my questions are completely different than what they were like a year ago, 2 years ago.
Sure.
I would say 2 years ago, because it's now officially been a year since like September of last year. That's so weird. 2020 is almost over.
I know. I've just not sort of been counting. I'm like, yeah, I'm still this age.
I know. I was telling everyone, I was like, we shouldn't count like 2020 as a year. We should be able to say that we're like still the age that we were.
You sort of mentioned quantum physics there. I wanted to ask sort of like a bit more about that, because I find it fascinating. I mean, did one of the songs quote The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in there? Was there sort of like
Yes.
spacey influences in there? Some of the music to me as well sounds a bit spacey.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I tried not to go too spacey with it, but I've always been like such a sci-fi nerd. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy has like been one of my favorite books for such a long time. And the movies, both the original and the remake movie, were amazing. Yeah, so like what I was talking about, kind of about like the questioning, like the questions kind of changed for me. I always loved that scene from the movie and that line from the book, and I really wanted to implement that into the album, and especially into that part, because I think it really like struck a chord for me, in terms of like these people are like have been asking what the meaning is life, and like it's been like, and I think it's like 7.5 billion years, something like that. They've been like trying to figure out the answer, and then when he says the answer and they all freak out, and he's like, the like key moment for me is when the computer's like, I think the problem is that you haven't been asking the right question. And so like for me, that was like, that's such a cool moment, and kind of really rang true to me. And it's a great movie. I wanted to incorporate it somehow, and I like, I try to incorporate all my little, especially with the visuals. Like I love Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is a kids show, but in a cartoon. But I love that whole universe. Like I want to live in that universe. I love the whole Marvel universe. Star Wars is like, kind of, it's a big part of my childhood and all that stuff. And so I've always had an interest in like astronomy and the stars, and kind of like the celestial wonder. And I've always kind of felt really connected to it. So it was kind of like I said before, even when I was like, oh, okay, I want to go this direction with the visuals and with the lyrics and with some of the production and stuff like that. Even before that, I was kind of writing about all these things that I was talking about, or, reading up on and stuff like that. And, I started really getting into like the idea of like higher dimensions, and like listening to all these like talks from physicists and quantum physicists about higher dimensions, and kind of the whole, phenomena behind that. And so, and like, then I'm listening to like the second to last song on the album, which I had written like 2 years ago, and like I'm talking about like I think the line is like taking me to new dimensions, and I'm just kind of like, oh, like I've been literally like talking about this stuff, and it's kind of, I didn't even realize it. So it's kind of been lingering, I think, without even in my subconscious. And I mean, I still like, I feel like I don't understand quantum physics. I like understand the kindergarten, uh not even that, it's like probably like pre-K. But I could never get any of the math or anything like that, but I'm so amazed by it and so interested in that whole world and what they like think about and just kind of how meta it is. And it was so interesting to me to look at all this stuff on YouTube and go down all these YouTube rabbit holes from different physicists, and how like people always tend to like separate science and spirituality and like these two separate things. And I was looking for answers of the meaning of life, obviously knowing that I'm not going to like find the answer, but just kind of what can I play with the ideas and stuff. And kind of in doing so, it kind of made me realize like, wow, science, spirituality, religion, they're quite similar. Like they shouldn't be on the opposite ends of spectrums, because really they're just talking about the same thing, they're just describing it differently. And kind of like brought more of a spirituality back into my life, which was pretty cool and exciting. So I kind of that it's been a journey, and that's what the album is as well.
Amazing. And aside from this sort of like quantum physics side of it, sort of lyrically and a little bit musically, were there any other sort of musical touchstones or influences you turned to for this record?
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many. It's like hard to kind of pinpoint where exactly, like, and where I kind of took from what and all that stuff. But I feel like, I don't know, I went through a really intense Bee Gees phase last year, and like one of the songs that I wrote last year, it's called What It Is, kind of was like heavily, all the harmonies were heavily inspired. I mean, I love doing harmonies, like, so I'll try to put in as many harmonies as I possibly can on any song. But that song was definitely like very heavily inspired by the Bee Gees. But I mean, it's kind of all over the place. Like I still am really inspired by Prem Joshua, who was this like not very well-known artist, but I kind of look to him at all times, anytime I'm writing, really, because he was really popular when I was a kid living in India with my mom. And he did this great kind of mashup of like this great hybrid of kind of classical traditional Indian music and kind of, I guess what they would, if you were in India, they would consider it like Western music. It was like more like lounge kind of vibes. But it was done so beautifully and like still had this like emotion to it. And I remember when I was, really starting to write, I really looked to him as an inspiration, because I was like, I want to do that. I want to like meld sounds and like kind of do it in a way that feels really unique. And so he's still a huge inspiration throughout the album. And I kind of go a little more hip hop with some of the songs. I'm kind of dabbling with that whole world, which I haven't really done before, and kind of implementing some of that stuff. And so like Tribe is always a huge inspiration for me, so I tried to kind of do that type of vibe, and kind of that they've always implemented very like jazz like samples and stuff like that, so try to do that with some of the beats and more of a contemporary way. It's kind of all over the place. It's hard for me to figure out what exactly like where I took what from, but I guess it's always, it's kind of subconsciously the people I've been listening to since I was a kid. So like Sade, Stevie Wonder, Earth, Wind and Fire, Tribe is a huge one, and stuff like that.
And I wanted to ask a bit about the album lyrically. We've kind of spoken about some of the sections, but some of the songs are really personal. The opener to the album sort of tackles imposter syndrome, and there's a song written from the perspective of your mother. Sort of how was it ever nerve-wracking putting so much of yourself into the music?
No, I mean, I feel like it's not. Sometimes it is. I don't know why, weirdly, when I'm like talking about like being in relationships, that's kind of nerve-wracking to me, like putting that out and exposing that side of me. I think because I don't really like to expose that side of me to the public or like even to my friends really. I'm just like very private when it comes to relationships and stuff like that. But so I think that when it comes to that stuff, it's very nerve-wracking. But at the end of the day, you know, you kind of utilize music, as many artists do, as like a form of therapy. So it really helps me to understand what I'm going through and what I'm feeling. So to put it into song, it's almost like a release for me. And then in terms of putting it out into the world, I guess I don't know. I feel like I'm quite open about the anxieties I have. I think it allows me, it's like I have to be open about it, because if I wasn't open about it, it would give me more anxiety going into sessions and stuff like that. Like I just kind of feel like it helps me to be like, okay, people are aware that this is how I feel, and like, so now we can move on, you know. So it's, and then also like, you know, I'm sure there's so many other people that deal with that feeling, or even if they don't get that like message from the song and they connect with it in a different way, like the fact that they're connecting with it, that's kind of like the ultimate goal. So I'm kind of excited, and like just I hope that people connect with it. Yeah, I think, you know, there's always a little feeling of nervousness, but it doesn't really affect me the way other things do.
And I always ask this question when someone's created an album, but what was it like the first time you sat down and listened to the entire thing from start to finish?
The first time I listened to it from start to finish, well, I was going through a bunch of mixes, so I was kind of sick of the album at the time. So I was kind of like, I just remember like I had to prove the masters and stuff. And we were going back and forth on one song, actually, what it is, because it's quite a long song. And we were trying to figure out how we could cut it. And so it was like 3 weeks of just trying to figure out how to cut the song, because the label wanted us to cut the song. And I was like, I don't know if I can cut the song, because we would try cutting different parts of it. And it was not working out. Every time I like was like, no, but I missed this part. And I ended up like finally after 3 weeks, we ended up adding a guitar solo to it. So we ended up doing the opposite of what the label wanted. Unfortunately, I feel bad about that. But so when I finally sat down to listen to it, I was kind of sick of the album in a way. So I was like, this just sounds good. But I haven't listened to it in a really long time. And then recently we went to Abbey Road to listen to it on this Atmos experience, which is like you have like 12 speakers, like you're like in the center of 12 speakers that are like, some of them are above you, and then they're like literally you're in a circle of speakers. And that I listened to the whole album start to finish, and that made me like super emotional. I was just like crying throughout the whole thing, and especially at the end, Event Horizon always gets me. And yeah, so that was kind of like a really emotional experience for me. It still doesn't feel done to me though. I'm kind of like, I still feel like I have like more to do, but it's more to so in visuals and in the kind of visual narrative I'm trying to tell.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the visuals, because I read that it's going to sort of have like a 5-part anthology that'll be released alongside it. Why did you want to have this sort of like visual side to it at all?
So I think that the like need and kind of longing for like this visual side to it is really me just pleasing my like kind of sci-fi nerdy self, and all like the dreams of like putting myself in those worlds and stuff like that. And also because there is this kind of storyline to the album, I just felt like it would be such a great way to be able to kind of, you know, put it into, I think people will understand it more through the visuals. And again, it's like, excuse me, it's one of those things where I felt like the album had all these little storylines, narratives and stuff like that. And I just felt like, okay, well, I love all these different TV shows and like movies and stuff like that. And I've always wanted to be a part of it. Like anytime I watch Avatar, I'm like, all I talk about is how much I wish I could be in this universe. Why not like just implement that into the visuals I'm doing? I'm gonna have to make music videos anyway. And so I just love like these little, I always love when visuals have like little Easter eggs and you know, start kind of like you get to play detective with certain things and stuff like that. So it's kind of me just putting, it's just me like excited to be able to like direct and make visuals and like make this kind of storyline and add these little like make, you know, make me look like a Marvel character or like, you know, bend water or something like that. So that was the reason why I did it. But yeah, and then it's just, you know, I love a good music video. So it's kind of, this is my opportunity to be able to, you know, try to make one.
Gonna say, it seems like it's sort of a thing that artists are now able to do more often. Obviously, Beyonce does so many visual albums and they're amazing, but Halsey's just done one, Katie Musgraves
Yeah.
is doing one for the new album. Do you think it allows artists to now be more creative with the worlds they're creating?
1,000%. I think it allows them to really kind of further expand on this world that they're creating. And yeah, it's such a, I mean, for me personally, and some artists don't really want to be that heavily involved in terms of like visual creative and stuff like that, which is also cool because it can be very stressful at times, to be honest. But I mean, I love, you know, music videos and when artists do like short films or visuals and stuff like that. So for me, it's like really exciting and cool. And yeah, for sure, I think it definitely expands on the creative side. And I think it like, you know, you work so hard on these albums and it's kind of like you want to like squeeze out as much of it as you can and like put it out into the world, you know. So it's just another way of interpreting wherever my head was at or wherever the artist's head was at, I guess.
So I imagine when you're writing it as a listener, we just hear like the final 3 minutes mix and masters, but for you it'll have gone through so many, you know, different recordings, and there's so many like unheard lyrics. So I guess it's another chance for us to join that world.
Yeah, exactly. It's another chance. I would say though that you definitely don't want to be a part because it can be really annoying hearing like I feel bad like anytime like my sister's hanging out, I'm like listening to. Sometimes I'll like ask my brother or something. I'm like, which makes you like better? And I'll send him like 3 different mixes and he's like, I hear no difference between any of these songs. Like there's no difference. And I'm kind of like, oh, what are you talking about? Like the snare is like much louder and like the harmonies are like all the way at the back. And like he's like, no, I really don't hear that. So honestly, sometimes I'm like, there's no point, but there definitely is a point because I think it's like one of those things where a lot of listeners, some people have that ear where they can like hear those things. Like my best friend, she'd be like, oh my God, you added a symbol or something. And I'm like, how the fuck did you hear? Like, how did you hear that? But a lot of people, they don't hear those things, but I think subconsciously they do notice those things and it does make difference on the subconscious level. You may not actually notice what it is that's changed or what it is that like makes you like a song or, you know, not like a song and stuff like that. But I think it's like, sometimes I feel like little thing, I do question if the little things make a difference, but then I think about that whole logic and I'm like, I feel like they definitely do. It's just not in your face. So definitely visuals for sure help, I think, in that aspect as well. Like for me, when I'm editing, like I always try, and some like film buffs or like filmmakers will really feel like this is like, that's cheesy or tacky to edit a visual that way or whatever. But I love to edit to the beat and like highlight certain parts of the production. I think just because I'm also really involved in the production. So like I want to like really show people like, oh, like you like what I did there with the snare or the hi-hat or something like that. So when I edit visuals, I'll always like make sure that things are edited on the beat and like to like certain parts of the song or like highlighting certain parts of the sounds and that I've chosen and stuff because I think it like, I don't know, for me when I watch a video where that happens, it just like gives it this extra drive and like really feels good to watch and to listen to at the same time. But I think it also helps a listener to notice certain parts that they wouldn't normally hear if they were just listening to it. So yeah.
Amazing.
That was a very long. I'm so sorry. I keep talking.
No, it's great. And I also wanted to ask as well, the last month you got to return to playing live, you played Lafayette in London. What was it like? Was it strange? Was it just amazing?
It was amazing. It definitely felt weird leading up to it. I think it's like I was really nervous. I hadn't been nervous for a show in a really long. I don't really get nervous for shows, weirdly. I get nervous for sessions, but not shows. But so I was kind of nervous for this one, I guess, because I hadn't performed in such a long time. But once I got on stage, it was so exciting to see people and like just be able to connect with people with the songs and to hear people singing the songs again, and just like everyone was dancing and the energy was just so high, and like it was amazing. And it went by like that. It was so, I was kind of disappointed that I felt like I was really trying to appreciate the moment, but it like still went by so fast. I felt like we like got on stage, and then like 3 seconds later I was singing the last song, and I was just like this, how did this all happen? But in reality it was like 70 minutes, so I don't know where the time went, but it was great. It was such a dream and felt so surreal, and to hear people, and people were like singing the new songs. Like I had put out Foreign Things the day before the show, people were singing that and already, and I was just like amazed and wowed, and I can't wait to do it again. I'm like so excited to perform again.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I so appreciate it, and can't wait for everyone to be able to hear the album.
Thank you so much for all these amazing questions.